The Frontline podcast is brought to you by Legion Technologies. Hourly employees want and need flexibility and predictability. They desire more connection and belonging with their peers and companies. And businesses want to maximize productivity while enhancing employee engagement to reduce turnover. Who said we can't have it all? The Frontline podcast is focused on discussing the challenges that come along with having an hourly workforce and shedding light on these important employees who are so often overlooked. You'll hear from leaders bringing transformational and innovative change to their organizations and ways you can improve your own experience and the experiences of your employees, no matter where you sit in your organization. At Legion, we believe that AI-powered workforce management solves these challenges. I'm your host, Tracy Chernoff, Director of Employee Engagement at Legion Technologies, and the host of the podcast, Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources. Be sure to subscribe to the Frontline podcast so you're the first to hear our bi-weekly episodes, which will come out every other Thursday. Learn more at legion.co, follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, and get ready to be part of the solution. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline podcast. We're so excited that you're here to join us for our very first episode, very first season, very first anything ever. So to kick us off, a little bit of housekeeping. First, make sure that you subscribe to this show. That is the only way that you will be notified of future episodes. And just so you know, every episode will be released every other Thursday. So this is our very first episode, and in 2 weeks, you can expect another one. If you subscribe, you will receive a notification when that next episode comes out, and every episode after that. And if you like what you hear today and you're interested in future content, make sure that you also share this podcast with someone that, is in your life, someone that you think would be really interested in what we discuss. And of course, you can leave a review, you can comment. You also can reach out to us directly. In every episode, you will see in our show notes a link to submit questions or ask for feedback or advice. So please be sure to do that as we continue along this journey together. And without further ado, I'm going to give you a little bit of background into who I am, whose voice you're hearing or who you're watching, depending on the way that you're consuming this podcast, which, by the way, you can watch or listen wherever you consume podcasts. So we are available everywhere. But to tell you a little bit more about me, my name is Tracy Chernoff, and I am the Director of Employee Engagement at Legion Technologies. I've been in HR for basically 10 years, and up until my career at Legion, I actually was in retail my entire life. So this is my first quote-unquote non-retail experience, even though I feel so closely connected to retailers because of what we do at Legion. So this podcast is really about focusing on hourly employees and frontline workers, which you're going to hear so much about. You're going to hear facts, you're going to hear thoughts, you're going to hear the status quo challenged quite a bit. And really, we're hoping to allow this podcast to give back to those employees who are at the front line and to raise awareness for those of you who are not frontline employees and maybe are salaried or making the decisions for those employees. Hopefully we can elevate your understanding of those key challenges throughout each episode. And those episodes will, really be conversations with thought leaders and people within the industry, frontline workers themselves. We hope to really elevate everyone around us and to have really important conversations. With that, you can head to the show notes to learn more and to connect with me. My Instagram is HRTracy. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can connect with Legion on LinkedIn, and you can listen to my other podcast called Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources. Every episode, so you're aware, will involve a very similar kind of flow. If we have a guest, you'll hear, of course, from the guest what they do, what they're passionate about, and some hard-hitting questions you'll hear the answers to. In addition to that, though, there will be some things that you can always expect to hear, like advice at the end of each segment from that thought leader. So whether it's advice that they have to give or advice that they've received, you will always hear that at the end of every episode. So make sure that you stay tuned throughout, and I hope that you enjoy. So without further ado, here is our very first guest. Leighanne Levensaler is our very first guest, and she has spent her 25-year career operating at the intersection of people, career development, and technology. Her passion and personal why is working with entrepreneurs to create inclusive solutions designed to help people maximize their potential and economic mobility. Leighanne Levensaler currently serves on the board of directors for Guild Education and Legion Technologies. She also serves as senior advisor for Opportunity at Work and contributes as an advisory board member for Landit, League, and Jobcase. Previously, Leighanne was Executive Vice President of Corporate Strategy at Workday, where she led the organization responsible for developing integrated business strategies. In addition, Leighanne was Managing Director and Co-Head for Workday Ventures, where she oversaw Workday investments in emerging enterprise technologies. During Leighanne's tenure at Workday, she led product management for Workday applications, including Workday Financial Management and Workday Human Capital Management. Prior to joining Workday in 2009, Leighanne was Principal Analyst and Director of Talent Management Research at Bersin Associates. Leighanne holds a master's degree in Human Resources Development from Georgia State University and a bachelor's degree in Education from Clemson University. Leighanne also serves on the board of Clemson University's Arthur M. Spiro Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership and is a Henry Crown Fellow at the Aspen Institute. So if that does not get you excited for this conversation with Leighanne, I don't know what will. Be sure to keep listening and subscribe, share this episode, share this podcast, and enjoy the conversation. Welcome to the very first episode of the Frontline podcast, Leighanne. Thank you so much for being here.
Wow, what an honor to be the first. I'm so excited. I mean, this is just going to be, I know, a phenomenal resource. So,
oh my gosh, I certainly hope so. And I really appreciate that you've taken time out of your extremely busy schedule just to record with us. And I know that all of our listeners today and all the listeners who we hopefully can acquire over the years will really appreciate this episode because I think you have a lot to bring to the table today. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into it because I know we're anxiously awaiting to hear so much about you and your perspective. Are you ready? Ready to be in the hot seat?
You should tell my husband and children that.
I will. Hey, you can send them this recording.
Great. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Amazing. So, Leighanne, tell us about yourself. Who are you? Where are you currently located? And what do you do?
Wow, that's a big life question. But I'm coming at you today from Alamo, California, which is about 35 miles east of San Francisco in the Bay Area. I'm originally from South Carolina, so you will hear that periodically. It still kind of finds its way in every once in a while, especially as I get going and get a little more comfortable. I have two children, as I mentioned. I have a 9 and a 13-year-old, so I'm in the thick of it. Also have two furry children, a 9-month-old and a 3.5-year-old. So It's a crazy house here. On the personal side, I'm an aspiring artist. I'm a total book nerd. Just love to geek out, reading, love book clubs, love all things books. And I'm an average tennis player trying to become better than average. Professionally speaking, I'm in this kind of special, I'd say this about every stage of my career, but this like special place in my career, which is super fun. I'm doing a lot of board work and advising and investing in early stage companies and all in my area of passion. So that's rewarding. I have the honor of being on the Legion board, which is how I arrived here today. I'm also on the board of Guild Education, which is an education and upskilling platform. Very much related to what we do at Legion, as well as Jobcase, which is a talent marketplace and a social network for hourly, seasonal, and gig workers to help them find opportunity and connect with each other. So these are my 3 big boards, really all complementary and super fun. Also serve as an advisor to a national nonprofit called Opportunity at Work, which really helps people that are skilled through alternative routes, didn't get their bachelor's degree, didn't get to go to college for one reason, didn't want to, didn't get to, whatever. Help them get connected with companies that want to hire them and kind of remove the shackle of the degree. And I work with a company called League, which is this beautiful healthcare experience platform for workers. So I just feel like I'm in this zone of greatness for these companies that are doing awesome work. And so that's me right now.
That's amazing. I mean, what don't you do, I guess, is a better question, because that is definitely, not only a lot of work because you are contributing to these organizations, but it's also a lot of really admirable work. So I'm sure that many people hearing the way in which you got into these things over the course of this episode will really appreciate kind of where you are today. And I love that you describe it as special, because then that means that those of us that get to work with you have a special experience as well. And it's very clear that you're super passionate about especially this hourly workforce. So we're going to get into that. Everyone listening, don't worry, we will get there. But before we get there, I would love to mention your LinkedIn profile, actually, because when I was doing my background research, obviously we've interacted before, but I wanted to make sure I covered all my bases, right? And your LinkedIn profile includes, to me, a captivating and a concise message about who you are. And so your about me is, simply put, I like to get things done and to take care of the people around me. So what does that mean to you? How did you decide, you know what, LinkedIn is crowded with all of this information. Let me keep it to one sentence.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm a simple person, so I probably needed a simple message. I use flowery language, but I'm generally in life operate pretty simply. And if you think about, well, now I'm pretty far along in my career, about 26 years of working. I'm old. No. There's so much to kind of like summarize or encapsulate that, and so many experiences were so wildly independent and diverse from each other. They're diverse from each other. But the continuity or the through line has always been, I really like working with people, and I love not just taking care of them, as I said in there, but being taken care of. I like being part of a community, being part of a team, and all that is required, all the responsibilities of that. And I just love making an impact and getting stuff done, accomplished, whether it's building a product, delivering a service, doing a podcast. And there's a lot of fulfillment on having like a result. And that was always a good reminder, especially when I was doing strategy and analyst roles in my past, where it's like, at the end of the day, we've got to have something to show for all this, right?
Totally.
And so I felt like, as I was building that out, and I've had that tagline for probably about 10 years now, as long as I probably have been on LinkedIn, I felt like that best encapsulates such a diverse background.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, you talk about your background a little bit. I'd love if you don't mind, if you could share with the listeners a bit about your career journey and how you got to where you are today.
Well, I got to where I am today because of a lot of wonderful special angels in my life helping me throughout, and a lot of wisdom from others, and a lot of great good luck and good fortune, I'll say that, but also a lot of hard work. But what I like to share, I spend a lot of time with students as well, especially at my alma mater at Clemson University. I always say, follow your passions. I know that sounds trite, but if you're working at something you really enjoy, it's not like working at all. You said earlier, I'm busy. Yeah, I'm busy, but I don't really feel that busy because it's always an enjoyable activity for me.
Yeah.
But I always knew that I would be focused on helping people get the most, reach their potential. I knew this from like sixth grade. And I was always in
so nice.
Leadership situations and, middle school, high school, college. Loved it. I always loved working with people. And so I started my career as an organizational development specialist. So after graduate school, started my career in 96. Don't worry, I'm not going to take you through all 25 years. I know we don't have time for that. But I started, and I'm still here. I guess the point being, I'm still here. However, in the context of working, I like to say at the intersection of people and technology, I have, put on a lot of different hats. I've been a consultant. I've been, as I mentioned, a practitioner. I've been even helped sell a product insofar as designing the front end of it. I have been an analyst. I've been a product leader. I've been a chief marketing officer for a nanosecond. I feel like I've done like every role in and around this idea of how can technology really elevate the human experience in a work context. And so that's that's been my journey. I spent the last, since last June, I've been doing my board work and investing and advising work, as I mentioned. But prior to that, I spent almost 12 years at Workday. And Workday, in many ways, is another one of my children. I don't take credit for Workday, but I just, it coincided with me having children. So it's like, Workday's another child.
Mm-hmm.
It's my family, my heart. It was more than a job. It was, an ability to like really change the way that we work. And I felt really grateful to be part of that journey in that rocket ship called Workday. And so, and in that context, had a lot of career opportunities to lead our product and lead strategy and a venture fund, which kind of got me into the investing world in a strange way. Never fancied myself an investor until helping to build up partnerships around in the Workday ecosystem with some financial resources. And so that's how I'm here today.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I loved what you mentioned about people and technology. And that's exactly why we're here today, because we are going to get into that. And I think, it's coming up a lot. I mean, you can read articles, you're seeing it on the news, how technology and people are either being framed as against one another or working with one another. And I think we both have this same concept and idea that they can work really beautifully together. So, with that, that's going to take us through the rest of this episode, because I know how passionate you are about the frontline worker population, especially. And so I do want to share a statistic, more so with the listeners, since I assume that you know this statistic already, considering your work and the work that you do. But 58% of eligible working Americans are hourly employees, which every time I mention that to someone, they're like, "Are you sure? That's a lot." And it's like, no, that's the statistic.
Well, it's like 82, 83 million, depending on the day.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's a lot.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you think about, you walk outside of your house or your apartment, and where do you go? You go and you interact with hourly employees, whether it's in a retail space, in the food space, hospitality. I mean, they are driving our world. And so what runs through your head when I share that 58% of working eligible Americans are hourly?
I think what runs through anybody's head, the backbone of our economy, truly. And, put in the spotlight appropriately and understandably during COVID, but have always been the backbone of our economy. And, but also the more I've spent trying to understand, working with companies, especially Legion, really having a heart for serving this population, this hourly workforce population, and companies that employ them. They live on the edge. They live on the margins. They do not have enough money to get through a major emergency. I think there's some stat of like, most of them don't have more than $400 to respond to emergency.
Wow.
Their lives, like all of our lives, are complicated with caretaking for children, for elderly, with transportation, with schooling, all the things that we have. But many of us are fortunate to have resources to kind of help us through that, to pay the babysitter, to get the transport here. But when you live on a razor's edge, and have to go from job to job, there's also a stat that they have more than one job. At one point, it was 2.6 jobs you had to have as an hourly worker, because half of those hourly workers make less than the minimum. They're less than $15 an hour. So just put that into context as well. And so what I think is, my heart starts going, how can, for our economy and for the humans, right? For our families, our communities, and our country, how do we improve their lives?
Right. This is the hard-hitting question, right? And it's definitely not going to be solved in a day. I think what's so interesting is that we see so many organizations really focusing on answering this question. And I think one question that I have for you around this is, how organizations that are people-centric or, focused on key talent, how that influences them. And maybe even more specifically for you, how people-centrism and key talent influence even your advising and your decisions in your board roles.
Well, it's easy when you're trying to show growth to focus on the numbers. in any, whether you're a small company just starting. I work with companies that are just an idea, PowerPoint, and getting started, to very large publicly traded companies, making billions a quarter, right? So there's really a spectrum, but in all cases, I think when we're only focused on the numbers, we lose when we're not really considering the experience. And I don't mean just the digital experience, but the overall experience for the people we serve as customers, but also the people that are in service to our customers. And so I think this idea, I like how you call it human-centric. I love that. But this idea of, when I'm in the boardroom or when I'm advising a company, just really spending the time talking about how are we developing our people? How are we creating an environment of which they can use their skills, their talents, gain new skills? How can they advance their economic situation? How can they improve their lives? Because by doing that, the company will improve. It's been proven. Like, we don't need any more surveys, stats, reports, evaluation, comparison, analysis. We don't need any more. We know that when you take care of your people, they will take care of your customers and your businesses will be better. We just know that. But somehow people start to get overly fixated on growth at all cost, and people are expenses, and let's not focus on what they need to grow individually.
Yeah, wow. This is a really good point. And, it makes me think about how complicated human life is, right? Like, we are all human beings in and out of work. And I always say that we bring our whole selves to work. There's no way at all that we can come to work a different person than we are in our personal lives. And that impacts everything. It impacts culture. It impacts engagement, retention, performance, everything. So with this, understanding that, there's this whole complicated concept of how people influence businesses at the core, right? How do organizations meet the moment and create positive cultures with that understanding in mind that we're bringing all of our whole selves to work, and especially when they're confronted with a challenge around retention, especially now with a difficult labor market? How do organizations do that?
I think there's some really specific tactical things that should be done, not always done because of maybe lack of investment. But just take what Legion offers, just for example, at the moment, like providing preferences, allowing hourly workers to state what their needs are, their wants, their desires, their preferences, giving them some agency in the scheduling process is really important, because we don't know their lives. To your point, they're really complicated lives. All of us lead complicated lives. We have no idea. And you can't scale that out except through technology in a wonderful way. So I think providing preferences is one. Scheduling autonomy, so the ability to have their own kind of, again, agency in the scheduling process, not just what their preferences are, but trading shifts and being able to select those shifts and help them navigate maybe multiple jobs or multiple caretaking responsibilities that they have, and giving them that kind of flexibility as well. Communication becomes really important. We're all human beings. Just because you're an hourly worker doesn't mean you don't have the same belonging needs that us at maybe a headquarters office might have. We all want to belong. So the best way to do that is just to communicate, both digitally or communicate electronically, as well as in person. Managers increase the manager capability around connection and communication, but also to have that in their pocket on their mobile phone. I think that's a big deal. We often overlook the importance of communication, where people just want to know what's going on and do I belong? And how am I connected? Is this more than an ephemeral relationship? Are there other opportunities here for me at this organization? These are great ways to retain. And another amazing way to retain is to offer upskilling, offer them the ability to sort of move to new roles within that company, increase their economic situation. I think those are ways to help increase retention, increase productivity, these are such a win-win. And this is more tactically what I just said in the last, in our last question. These are the more tactical examples of how to do that. That's why I'm so attracted to Legion. I am a fangirl, and I have been actually before joining the board.
Same.
I was a raving fangirl. I met Sneesh, the CEO, many years ago, and we sort of geeked out on Frontline Worker, how much we love them. But I love that these are like, okay, tangible, exact ways to do it, ready-made. Let's go.
Right. I love this. I mean, first of all, I am also a self-declared fangirl. It's why I brought Legion to my last organization and why I'm now at Legion today, because I just couldn't get enough. But that's a story for another time for all of those listening. What I loved about what you just mentioned is that all of these challenges can be made less of a challenge or even solved with just a little bit of technology. Because I mean, that's the thing. Like, we're living in a technological age and there's no getting around it. As much as we all kind of hope social media just crashes and burns one day, the reality is that technology actually is what fuels these solutions. And there is always a balance. I mean, too much of anything is never so great, right? It's everything in moderation. And so when we think about technology, even like what Legion does, we look at, and many organizations that are offering technological solutions are looking at what is the key challenge and how can we focus on the user that we're helping to solve the problems for, and how do we use technology to elevate their experience and improve their lives. And it's not about replacing, it's not about completely separating people and technology. It's about bringing them back together. And I just love that you so eloquently mentioned that within, just organically within your response. And it makes me think about this reality that many companies today are struggling with retaining employees for so many reasons. And it's probably going to continue until companies really put into place like the actions and the solutions permanently. So what would you advise as a first step to problem solving a retention issue when an organization is experiencing that?
The big question, why? Do they know why? Most companies think they know why. Oh, it's wages, or oh, it's competition, or oh, they just raised their salary, got offered a new benefits, everybody's pulling there, or it's this season, or lots of reasons, but don't really know. I think when companies actually start to really investigate why through proper exit surveys for hourly workers that just do not exist, right? We do them for our headquartered employees and in different industry sectors. We do exit surveys all the time. We don't do them for hourly workers. Why not? Their feedback. Better yet, don't wait till they leave to get it. Get the feedback, start collecting feedback way ahead of the time. And then, hallelujah. But we don't even know why they left and where are they going, right? I mean, the question is like, where are they going? Why are they going there? This is like, again, I grew up in HR. This is HR 101. We do not do this for hourly workers. Most companies do not. I mean, there are exceptions, and good for you, whoever's listening and out there. Frankly, if you're listening to this, you're already fully evolved. So
totally. Yeah, right. Good job. Good on you.
So I'm speaking to there here. But I think getting to the why. And then from there, actioning. So many times we ask questions, but we just sort of like leave it in a database. So where does it go? Start to action those and communicate back to the communication loop. Here are the things we're changing because we heard you. That is not a sign of weakness. If you went out to your employee population, your worker population for hourlies, we heard this through exit interviews. This was a challenge. We are fixing this, or we're on a stair-step way to address this. Do you know how much affinity that would build? How much exceptional, admitting that this was a deficit and now we're going to make it an asset for us? Beautiful. Yeah. So my advice is always do you really know why? Do you really know why? Do you really know why? And by the way, ask why before they leave.
Right. Oh my gosh. If I could just put that advice on repeat. I mean, this is a fundamental piece of HR. You're right. HR 101. And yet so many organizations are either not having, to your point, not having exit conversations or are not closing the loop on the feedback. And when you said the better thing to do would be to to speak with them before they leave, I couldn't contain my arms. I was cheering. For anyone that's listening and not watching the video, I mean, I was literally cheering. That is, I mean, precisely the way to figure out the why, or at least get some context to the why, that, you know, maybe you realize you're having an issue and you just want to get ahead of it, and you don't want more people to leave. You just want people to be happy and to retain them. And I always call them stay interviews. Right. Because it's just right. Like, we want you to stay. We don't want this to be an exit conversation. Right. Let's like figure out what some of the challenges are today, and let's work on them together. So I really appreciate that advice. And you're right. I think anyone listening is already in the thick of it, passionate about figuring out how to solve some of their more complicated issues. So if you're listening, spread the word that there's a lot of really good tips and tricks on this episode, because that's amazing. And I'm going to switch gears a little bit, actually, because there's a term that I've only heard you use before, and that is techno-optimist. And
I did not make it up, though.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. No,
I did not, but no, it perfectly embodies the way I feel, but I latched onto it. I picked it up from somewhere. So.
I love it. And maybe now that I know the word exists, I'll see it in other places. Yes, nevertheless, I know that you are a self-declared techno-optimist. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? And how does technology influence employee experience?
Well, what it doesn't mean, sometimes it's easier to start with what it doesn't mean, so people don't like kind of tune out on what I say going forward, Pollyanna-ish. What it doesn't mean is that technology can be used in ways that are not awesome. Think about the algorithms on social media and creating echo chambers and polarizing us. Think about ethical. We have to always think about ethical considerations for compliance, and making sure that disenfranchised population, or we don't disenfranchise population. So there are definitely reasons to build safeguards and be on guard and alert to the use of technology. So I want to make sure I'm very clear on that. I am not saying it's all good. But with that said, I do believe if we continue to make progress there as a society, as a culture, as a community, the benefits of technology far outweigh the drawbacks, far outweigh. And if you just think about what we were sharing earlier, about using these algorithms not for bad reasons, but actually to help get people better work in a flexible environment where they have a lot of control and the company gets what they want, using technology to support that instead of having to do, I think there's one of Legion's companies, Muji, right? Am I saying that right? Muji, a Japanese company, a retailer, and they were saying that they used to use like emails and sticky notes and all sorts of things for managers to try to keep track of what the employees' requests are to change the schedule. And with Legion, obviously that all goes away. So it's very life-giving for the manager, who doesn't have to like kind of keep track of things, potentially disappoint someone, put someone in the lurch, maybe lose someone because they don't show up to work because they can't show up to work. So much goodness comes from technology in that way, just to be very specific about it, but also just scaling out communications, allowing for bi-directional communications, allowing people to get and give feedback in really powerful ways on the job, in the flow of work, in rich context. I mean, these are all phenomenal use cases that weren't previously possible without technology. And these aren't just automation use cases. I went through like no technology, or just technology was starting to be a thing at work, more outside of the IT department when I started working, to automate everything, which is awesome, to now what we're really starting to do is optimize with the technology and create better, richer experiences, more engaging experiences. And so I just only see us getting better at this. But also I'm always mindful, and I'm always quick to participate in privacy discussions and ethical considerations. And I think that's important for all of us to do that.
Right. Agreed. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love this term. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for how others are defining and leveraging techno-optimism in their lives as well. And so we've talked a lot about businesses and technology and bringing business and people and technology all together. And I believe that businesses are nothing without their people. So when I say business, that is considering the entire core that makes it work. And every organization, I think, has a real opportunity to see people that way as being the ones that are really driving and steering the boat, so to speak. But considering all of this that we've discussed today, is there a way for businesses, organizations to be future-proofed when it comes to, just in general how they operate, but also really thinking about this people-centrism?
No. However, no from a one way of doing things, one process, one piece of technology or one set of technologies. No from that perspective, a quick no. But yes, from are you developing a culture of learners, of people that are always trying to look at the situation, improve the situation, develop the skills? Are you building this mindset of a learning culture, a learning mindset inside the organization? That is the way you future-proof, because technologies change. They do. Processes need to change with respect to technology. Markets change. Markets clearly change. We all know that right now.
Mm-hmm.
The best way to future-proof is not a thing. It's a people. It's back to the people. It's the learning culture you create in your organization.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. And there's really not much more to say after that, because that's just the advice, right? Everyone needs to run away from this episode instilling these ideas and fundamental approaches to their organizations. And I can only imagine how helpful this is for someone who might not have all of the resources, or really, maybe even as a frontline worker themselves, and is trying to influence the future of their organizations, because we know that those hourly workers, 58% of the eligible working Americans out there, have a real opportunity to influence the future of their organization. So thank you so much for that. And I'm not going to let you go just yet, because I do have one final question for you, and it's back to you. So this is your last question, and then you'll no longer be in the hot seat, I promise. But that is, while we're on the topic of advice, what is the best advice that you've received and that you continue to live by?
Having a long career and being in the career space, I've gotten a lot of awesome advice, and I feel like I've taken most of it. The one enduring piece of advice I got at the very beginning of my career was to stay curious. And no matter what stage of my career, peaks and troughs like we all have, this advice has always been just perfect. Stay curious. Curious because for your own self, for learning and growing, but also curious about the people around you. We started the conversation this way, so maybe I'll end it this way. When you're sincerely curious about other people and other people's work, whether it's the people you serve or the people you work around with in service of others, you're going to be a better partner. You're going to be a better colleague. You're going to be a better manager, a better leader, whatever your relationship is, because you care. Because curiosity builds empathy, which delivers care. It just does. And so, simple advice. I actually have a sticky on my computer here, and I've had a sticky on my computer for everybody who's worked with me knows this, for as long as I've worked, that says stay curious every single day.
Wow. Well, I definitely am going to stay curious. Thank you so much, Leighanne. And for those of you listening, you can expect that we will ask every guest that question. So you're going to get a lot of advice while listening. Yeah, right. So everybody, you better stick around. And actually, while we're talking about that, make sure that you subscribe, comment, leave a review. And if you want to learn more about Leighanne, make sure you head to our show notes to learn more. Leighanne, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
It was fun, and it flew by.
I know, right? Hey, time flies when you're having fun, right? That's what they say.
Well, great. Well, I appreciate being the first, and I can't wait to hear all the advice from others. So thank you.
Thank you so much.